What's going on in Sudan? 5 things you should know about the crisis in Darfur. 1. Genocide. As many as 180,000 innocent Africans have been killed in Africa's largest nation since February of 2003. Non-stop fighting has ravaged the western region of Darfur in a conflict that is still widely being ignored. Concern for Darfur reached a peak in September of 2004, when then U.S. Secretary of State Colin Powell publicly condemned the violence. Calling it genocide, he cited a widespread pattern of killings, rapes, and the burning of villages. The statement was meant to be a wake-up call. But as the death count continues to rise, the situation is now even more desperate. 2 million refugees have fled Darfur to camps in other parts of Sudan or across the border in Chad. The United Nations has called this the world's worst humanitarian crisis. But after concluding an investigation in January, the UN stopped short of using the G word, instead calling the carnage crimes against humanity. And yet, despite the urgency, it seems like there's been lots of talk but little action from the global community. Meanwhile, activists are urging the world to act now, before the Sudan crisis becomes even more disastrous, like the genocide in Rwanda 11 years ago, which resulted in 500,000 killed. 2. Conflict. The people of Darfur are being targeted by Arab militias known as the Janjaweed, which means armed men on horseback. Though the Sudanese government denies supporting these Arab guerrillas, most of the world community believes they are financing the violence. Sudan is an Islamic military regime, and the Arab-controlled government is being accused of ethnic cleansing, trying to wipe out the tribal population in a continuing battle over land, water, and resources. 3. Starvation. For years, Sudan has been plagued by drought and famine, at its worst in the 1980s, when much of the land was unsuitable for farming. During that time, pop artists from around the world rallied together for Live Aid, a concert that benefited the hungry in Ethiopia and Sudan. The same problems exist today, worsening the refugee crisis. 4. Economic sanctions. Some say oil money is being used to buy guns for the Janjaweed militias. Though American companies are not allowed to do business in Sudan, countries like China have big oil interests there, and those companies are traded on the New York Stock Exchange. The UN was considering a threat of oil sanctions if Sudan did not do more to stop the violence. But no economic penalties have yet to materialize. 5. A glimmer of hope. The violence in Darfur is just the latest of many struggles the Sudanese have faced. In a separate conflict, the North and the South have been embroiled in Africa's longest-running civil war for 2 decades. But a watershed peace agreement was signed in January, ending that conflict. And since then, the UN Security Council has voted to send more than 10,000 peacekeeping forces to the region. Some say that if Sudan's government can set aside differences in that conflict, there is hope for Darfur. As groups like Amnesty International continue to spread the word about the crisis, several nations and humanitarian agencies have sent food to Darfur in hope of easing the pain. Meanwhile, 10,000 people are dying monthly in the killing fields and refugee camps of Sudan. For more on the crisis in Sudan, check out MTVU.com.